talk about great music. For those that were, I don't know, angsty teenager anarcho-leftists, you had the classic song, Baby, I'm an Anarchist, for which I can still play on the guitar. And then, of course, you had much better songs, in my opinion, like Pints of Guinness Make You Strong, which is just about an old woman whose husband died from alcoholism, presumably alcohol poisoning, and never came home. And I'm going to show you the lyrics and explain the true backstory.
Tim Pool ripped a band he was a huge fan of.
So you get a controversy where a transgender singer is sexually graphic in front of a crowd of people, which I presume largely is adults, but it's a Bernie rally, so there's probably some kids there. Totally inappropriate. And this is exactly the point many of us have in terms of, I guess, calling out the woke left and the problems. Trans punk star Laura Jane Grace sings at Bernie Sanders rally, infuriating right-wingers. I don't know. How about the other headline from the Daily Mail? Trans punk rocker slammed for ungodly lyrics during onstage performance at Bernie Sanders rally. Quote, pure evil. I don't know if they're going to show the lyrics in here. I can't tell them to you on YouTube. I'm not kidding. YouTube would probably, at the bare minimum, demonetize the video.
He's lying, as always. Thus, this man took him to task.
And Tim is just like obsessed in this video with like proving how like hardcore of a fan he was, how deeply ingrained into like the against me sphere he was. He even goes on to sort of like brag like, oh yeah, you know, like I know people who knew or know Laura Jane Grace. You know, I don't know them personally. I don't got any beef, but like, you know, I know people who know people. And Tim like basically says all of this to build up to his argument that in his opinion, now he states this as fact, but then he also sort of like backpedals a bit. He's like, oh, I'm just saying, I'm just asking some questions. He goes on to argue that he feels that Laura Jane Grace is essentially just like pretending to be trans or transed herself for money and attention, and was entirely motivated by the fact that like Against Me was in a ton of debt and just needed money.
Who else than Anthony Fantano? Now, before playing another clip, let's paint this picture. Poole went on his show, his own show, dead named lead singer Laura Jane Grace, after admiring the work of the band Against Me. Disgustingly, much like Poole's worn-in beanies, he quipped, I believe Laura Jane Grace largely weaponized being trans for money. And this is coming from somebody who was deeply influenced and was a fan before the transition. He would claim, again, Grace did it for money. An insane theory that has no legs whatsoever.
Because when you dig into the band's back catalog, like tracks as early as Disco Before the Breakdown do very much convey like a closeted queer experience point of view of some sort. So like that alone would instantly delegitimize any argument that Laura Jane Grace coming out of the closet was like entirely fabricated and so on and so forth. But what's hilarious about this is that Tim is apparently such a fan, he's actually aware of this song, references it in his rant, and sort of like poo-poos the idea of that by saying this song must just be about either being gay or being about dating someone who's really fat and ugly.
Poole would also say, you know, my friends told me that they heard it at a show, and she admitted it at a show that she's doing it for money, blah, 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 blah. Didn't happen. Thus, Grace responded, I have no idea what the F he's talking about. He made up some moment about me being on stage in Chicago and confessing or something like that. I can produce a doctor's note saying this person is trans, which is essentially what you have to get to give to a doctor when you get FFS, like I've had, or the letter the psychologist had to write for me so that an endocrinologist would prescribe me HRT. I've jumped through all the hoops they put in front of me. It's never enough. That's what shows you these people are full of blank. Embarrassingly, Grace shared a DM that she received from Tim Pool, which stated, and I quote, your music was a huge influence on me in my skateboarding anarcho youth phase. I used to cover Against Me busking in the Chicago subway. I'd love to help in any way. Stoked to read your book. That's embarrassing, but what was that book, you might be asking, according to Rolling Stone? Confessions of Punk Rock's Most Infamous Anarchist Sellout, which deals largely with Grace's gender identity. Tim, what happened, man?
Because if Tim is going by the metric that Laura Jane Grace was at one time, like a really great underground hardcore singer-songwriter with anarchist leanings, and now she's like no longer fully that, and as a result she's a loser and a cretin and she shouldn't be taken seriously. Okay, if that is true of Laura Jane Grace, that applies 8, 10, 20 times for Tim Pool, who apparently over here again is sitting here like a stan. I play all the songs on the guitar. Oh. So like, how deep into the ideological tank were you for every old school Against Me song? Probably more than even Laura Jane Grace was, and she wrote tracks. In the grander scheme of things, the ideological shift that we're seeing in Laura Jane Grace is like super gradual and even minimal in comparison to Tim Pool going from Against Me stan who knows all the songs on the guitar to Russian oligarch paid right-wing talking head freak who releases some of the worst music known to man under the title of his podcast.
Overall, gross from Pool, but also par for the course if you know anything about this deplorable human being. But here's what everyone needs to remember.
Tim Pool over here is a million times more the sellout than Laura Jane Grace could ever be. And he gets to sit there on his shady billionaire funded podcast YouTube channel and pretends like he's not the textbook definition of a political internet grifter.
Here's my question, because we have talked about this previously. The failed fill in the blank to right-wing grifter pipeline is rich with talent, okay? Ben Shapiro wanted to be a Hollywood writer, couldn't cut it, turns hardcore right-wing, becomes a prominent face in right-wing circles, and at one point is even on a trip when Elon Musk claimed he was a changed man after spewing anti-Semitism with Netanyahu and Musk himself. There's Steven Crowder, a failed comedian who was never funny. We have shown those pieces from his stand-up. It's tasteless. What did he do? Started trolling people at different events, and then suddenly Fox News loves him. Wow, what a surprise. And then he realizes that, oh, there actually is a market for being a misogynistic, racist POS. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. Michael Knowles, failed actor, wanted to be big in Hollywood. What do you know? He goes from doing gay scenes in different films to bashing gay people and being a part of the Daily Wire and having a huge audience on his YouTube channel. Oh, shocker there. Tim Pool wanted to be a musician. He wanted to be an artist. He even said in a DM he was busking in the Chicago subways in order to become a musician. He failed. And so what did he do? He turned hardcore right-wing podcaster guy. And as it was reminded to me by some at this company a few days ago, he tried putting out music on his Timcast YouTube page, and it was bad. It was really bad. So why exactly does this happen over and over again? Do they believe in what they're saying, or are they in it for the fame and the money? It really is a question that only they could answer, and truth be told, they never will. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.